Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is Yevamot daf Mem Bet. We are already at the top of daf Mem Bet at the 2 dots. And over this coming week, I'm hoping, I got to double check that it'll be okay with Ellie, but I'm hoping that we will try and get ourselves a daf ahead, because a week from tomorrow, next Tuesday, I'm not going to be available. And so just to give folks that heads up. So, all right, but let me share my screen and we will get started. 1 second, where is it? Here we go. So yesterday we learned a Mishnah that noted that Reuven's brother Shimon, Reuven is our typical decedent here. He dies without children. So Reuven's brother Shimon must wait 3 months after Reuven's death before performing chalitza or yibum with his widow Rachel. We then noted that the same law applies to other previously married women, and our Gemara is going to pick up by quoting this last bit of language. Initially, it's going to ask for an explanation as to why this is. Why is it that we're worried? And then we'll look at an inconsistency, and we'll go from there. So we're now at the 2 dots at the top of Mem Bet Amud Aleph. V'chein shar kol nashim, and similarly, all other women, after they leave their first marriage, they are not allowed to have do erisin or nisuin until 3 months have passed. So Bishlam Yevamot, it all makes sense when we said our first rule in the Mishnah, because where we were talking about a woman whose husband died without children, and as a result she was going to fall to his siblings. Kida Amran, as we said, in that situation, the problem is that if in fact she's pregnant and turns out to have a child, well then if yibum was done, you end up with a real sin, because if there's no yibum in the situation where she's pregnant with a live child, and so as a result, in that situation, in fact, she's supposed to go free, and she's not allowed to marry one of Reuven's brothers, and that sexual relationship is actually prohibited. Question as to it's prohibited as a kares penalty, subject to a penalty of kares, and meaning that any child that would actually result in the child being the mamzer. So that is a big problem. But elashar kol nashim. But when it comes to other women, yeah, all right, so she might be pregnant and you might be unsure about who the dad is, but if in fact, so for example, if let's say Reuven has 3 children with Rachel, and now Reuven passes away, and now Rachel decides to marry the unrelated Chaim. And so what's wrong? So even if she's pregnant, there's nothing that's really wrong about the situation. She'll be, we may be unsure as to who the father is if she gives birth after 7 months, but what's the difference? Who really cares? So so again, why is it that we have to say that she should avoid marrying for 3 months? So we're going to offer 2 explanations. So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel, Mishum de Amar Kra, because we have a pasuk that says Liyot lecha lelukim ulazaracha acharecha, right? That when Hashem is entering into a covenant with Abraham, Hashem says that Hashem is going to be a God to Abraham and to Abraham's offspring. So the implication, according to Rav Nachman in the name of Shmuel, is the fact lahavchin ben zaro shel rishon lezaro shel sheni, meaning that you need to know who the parent is. So, and of course, most people say that this is just a smachta, but the idea is that parental clarity is something that the rabbis require. So Masiv Rava didn't like that answer. Lefikach Ger v'giyores tzrichen lahamtin shlosha chadashim. So but we also say that even a convert and two converts who are married to each other, if they are about to convert, they also need to wait 3 months. Well, there's no question about who the father is. They're married. It's not a problem whatsoever. So why do they need to wait? So the Gemara explains, no, no, it doesn't. There's a distinction between children that were conceived when they were already Jewish and children that were conceived when they aren't Jewish. Although, of course, the truth is that the child that will be born once the mother has converted will be Jewish. So there won't be a required conversion for the child. But in any event, there seems to be this distinction between being able to determine who is born or conceived while Jewish. Now, but Rava therefore still doesn't like that answer, and so Rava gives his own explanation. Rava Amar Gzeira Shema Yisa es Achoso me'aviv v'yabim Eshes Achiv me'imo v'yotzi es imo lashuk v'yivtoris yivimto lashuk. So we've got 4 different categories of situations where somebody could make a mistake. Mistake number 1 is you could end up marrying your paternal sister, because you might think that that husband number 1 is the father. Husband number 2 is the father, is your father, but in fact, husband number 1 is your father, and now husband number 1 may have had another wife, and with that wife had a daughter, and you're thinking that daughter is not related to you at all, and in fact, it's considered she's your paternal sister, and so that would be problem number 1. Or taking a yibum in the case of a maternal brother. Well, that would be, for example, in the following case, if in fact we have Ruvain is Rachel's first husband, and then Shimon is the second husband, and now Ruvain and really this child Ben is the son of Ruvain, and now, but he thinks he's the son. He thinks he's the son of Shimon, and that his brother is Achi. And Achi now marries somebody and dies without children, and so he thinks he's supposed to, in fact, do yibum with Achi, but it turns out that no, only his mother is common with Achi, not his father, and so as a result, he'd be doing yibum somebody who's not supposed to do yibum with. And so that's another kind of problem that can exist if you don't know exactly who the father is. Okay, b'yotzi esimolashuk, and then another problem would be if you could think that the wife of a deceased husband who dies without children is going to end up going to the marketplace, meaning that she goes out free to be married, because everybody thinks that there's no brother to do yibum, but in fact, this guy is the brother, because he thought he was the child of the first husband, and in fact, he's the child of the second husband. So as a result, in that same situation, now we have a problem where in reverse. And the Yivtoras, Yivtolashuk, or again, he could try and free his Yevamot, by marrying her, and now all the others think that they're going to the shuk, but in fact, she's not. His action is nothing, and so as a result, all these women are really not supposed to be marrying. And so we got lots of different problems that can exist if we don't know who the father is, and so as a result, that's going to be a problem. So Mezi Rokananya, the Rokananya now challenges Rava's explanation. So when we have a brisa that says all of the Yevamot that we just said that you have to wait on remarriage, The problem is because of an erva. But here, the issue is not the problem of having the marital relationship between the Yavam and the Yavama, which of course that was the case with respect to Yibum, right? We said that the problem in a classic Yibum case, and the reason that you need to wait is because we need to make sure that the Yavam isn't sleeping with his brother's wife in sin. Because if his brother's wife has a child, then he would be sleeping with her in sin. And so, but we just explained, according to Rava, that the problem is not with the Yavam. The problem is with the child. Now, so how can you say that that all of them are are about erva, given the fact that you're saying that they're really about the child? So hi mishum and takanas vlad. No, so we understand as a as a remedy for the child, meaning in order to avoid the birth of mamzer. No, delo lifka bahu erva. It's not meaning when we said, so the Rice had said that the issue is because of erba and because we want to make sure that the Vlad is not a mamzer. That's not the way to read the Brisa, but rather the way to read the Brisa is it's in order to make sure that the Yavam doesn't engage in a relationship with an erva and the child doesn't begin to enter into a relationship because of an erva. So it's both. The problem is either one could happen, and it's not just one problem. It's not just a problem at the top generation, not a problem with the generation who doesn't wait, but the problem could also be with the generation that follows. So, all right. So now we've come up with these two explanations for why we do not, why we need to wait. And now we're going to analyze the amount of time. So does it make sense that we're going to wait 3 months? So Bishlam did not say low. So it makes sense why we don't allow just the waiting of 2 months, the Hainu sake. So that's the uncertainty. There is in general, in terms of Talmudic biology, there is two lengths of time associated with a pregnancy. Either a pregnancy can go 7 months or it can go 9 months. It cannot go. If you can't really go less than 9 months, that isn't 7 months. Basically, there's like a 2-month window. And so now we're going to try to explore why we don't choose a different amount of time. The Ibar Tisha Lakam, right? Because if it's a 2-month difference between when the husband number 1 dies and husband number 2 marries, so then we can totally understand why that will lead to uncertainty. Because maybe when husband number 2 has that initial relationship with the wife, so maybe he'll be the father, and it's a 7-month birth from his relationship, or maybe it was a 9-month birth from the relationship before when the first husband passed away. So because, all right, so Ibar Tisha Lakama, maybe it's a 9-month period for the first husband, Ibar Shiva Lavasra, or maybe it's a 7-month period for the second husband. I say, why not let them marry after 1 month? The Ila Shiva Yalta, and if she converted after 7 months, Ibar Shiva Lavasra, will know it's the second husband. The Ila Tzmanya Yalda, and if she gives birth after 8 months, so Ibar Tisha Lakama will know that that it's a 9-month child for the first husband, right? Because the husband must have had relationships a month earlier, and so it would be 9 months after the death. So, but of course, there's the problem with that. Because, even if she gives birth after 8 months, you could still say it's the second father, because the second husband, Dilma maybe they delayed a month and only got pregnant after 1 month. All right, so therefore that does not work. So 1 second, so let's let her wait after 2.5 months. Why do you have to wait a full 3 months? The Ila Shiva Yalda, because if in fact she gives birth after 7 months, Haivar Shiva Labasrahu, clearly the 7-month child is going to be the second husband. But if she gives birth after 6.5 months, hi bar tisha lakamahu. Well, then it's 9 months for the father, for the first husband. Di bar basrahu bar shita upalga lochaye. Because if it's 6.5 months after the first pregnancy, so we know that it's not going to work. So we'll know that 2.5 months should be sufficient. So because no, the problem is that even if she gives birth after 6.5 months, you could still say it's the second husband. The Amar Marzutra, because Marzutra said, that even if you go according to the current opinion that says that when we say that that children are born for 9 months, it means that they're born after 9 months and not some lesser period. Yalda Lashima, you could say that even that those children that are born after 7 months are potentially born earlier, and we in fact see a biblical case where that could be the case. Right, when it talks about Hannah having her son Shmuel, so Hannah had the baby litukufot, seasons, hayamim, and days. So that pasuk at the beginning of Shmuel Aleph, so it specifically references seasons and days. Miutukufot shnayim. The least amount of seasons is 2, and miyamim shnayim, and the minimum number of days is 2. And so that implies that she gave birth after 6 months and 2 days. And so that shows that even if you're in the 7th month, that's sufficient, and you could have a live, viable birth in the 7th month. Well, the tamtin mashahu betina say. So 1 second. So then, what about if they just wait a few? According to Rashi, a few days, or according to Tosfos, according to Rashi, either a week or 2, or according to Tosfos, wait 3 days. So, and then we'll know which one it is, because we said that you can't have a child born, anything less than 9 full months, and so that doesn't make any sense. So as a result, why do we need the full 3 months? So Amarav Safra in Bokinis and the issue is that if we were to do, and then what we can do is after 3 months, we can do a full-fledged check. Because if we do a full-fledged check of the woman will only begin to show signs of pregnancy or Talmudic biology that after 3 full months. And so if, in fact, after 3 full months, the death of the husband, you see signs of pregnancy, the first husband, so then we'll know that the first husband was the father. And if, in fact, we don't see such signs, well, then we'll know that the second, if she eventually becomes pregnant, we'll know that the second husband is the father. So we don't really need to do any kind of detailed, long waiting. We can just do a biology exam.
Well, what are they talking about here? I mean, what kind of checking are they talking about here?
So the Rashi explains, I believe, that basically the idea is that you would check the woman's breast to see whether or not they were beginning to develop milk, and so that would be the check that they would do. I don't know that that's actually biologically accurate, but in any event, that's the check Rashi suggests.
Okay. Also, David, your sound, I don't know, is going in and out.
Yeah. I've got, okay, so thank you. If you could, I think you have a blower that is sufficiently close to the microphone, Hanan. If you can turn off your, put yourself on mute, you will find that my sound will be back to normal.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's only if it's an issue that, because I hear a white noise when you are unmuted. So that's my suspicion. Okay, so hopefully that is better. Okay.
One other question.
Please, go ahead.
The concern is that if they wait the 3 months, that he's going to change his mind, maybe, or something like that. I mean, why? I mean, what is the big deal about waiting 3 months? You know, or they want to, maybe they trying to do it as soon as possible so he won't change his mind or something.
Well, I think that there are two aspects. So one is exactly that. I think that we want to encourage marriage as much as possible, and we do everything that we can to encourage marriage. So that's number one. But number two is also in a situation of b'diavad, if in fact it actually happened, are there steps that we can take in order to try and identify and thereby resolve the issue? So I think those are the two things that at least come to my mind most quickly to answer that.
But I mean, if it's up to him, right? I mean, he's supposed to wait the 3 months, but like if it's up to him or something, if he could or he doesn't have to, or I mean, he
No, well,
should.
that's the argument, right? The argument is maybe let's allow him not to have to wait the full 3 months. And the answer is that no, we need him to wait the full 3 months because otherwise there's no definitive way.
I understand, but but if he doesn't, he doesn't, right?
No, if he doesn't, so then we're in a big problem because now if it turns out that she's pregnant, we're
No, I
going.
understand, but that's the child's problem. That's a paternity issue. But I mean, it's not like the Yibum's not effective or anything like that.
Well, remember if it turns out that she's pregnant, so then he's going to have to divorce her because in the Yibum situation, we covered that about
Right.
so
Okay.
there is a situation in the Yibum situation. If he's pregnant and there's an uncertainty as to who the father is, then he needs to do chalitza and divorce her because if it turns out that the child is actually Ruvain's, so then he can't engage in marital relations with her any longer. And since he's unsure, he ends up having to do both chalitza and Yibum, both chalitza and a get. Because he didn't wait.
And again, she doesn't have any choice in this, right? I mean, she can't say, "Hey, let's wait, guy," or something.
Well, yeah, so of course she has there are two aspects to the halacha. So halakhically, it is impermissible to rape someone, and so there is certainly some violation associated with that. With respect to your comment, though, I think what you're touching on is the fact that even in a rape situation, that yibum is considered a valid yibum because you don't need any intention on her part, unlike in a traditional marriage, to get married. And so as a result, that is correct. But yes, she is supposed to assent to any sexual relation. So it's sort of like combining two different things. So yes, she's supposed to assent, but if in fact she didn't, so then the yibum did occur. That doesn't mean that he didn't violate some other sin that's associated with that. Okay, so Amar Rav Safra. So now Rav Safra is going to explain why 3 days and a physical investigation is not going to be sufficient. Ein bo kines anisuas, because the truth is that we don't impose on a married woman this kind of physical examination. Shelo yizganu al baaleihem, because that will interfere with the relationship between her and her husband. Right, her husband may find her repulsive as a result of her having to have gone through such a intrusive investigation. So v'nivdeka b'halucha. Well, 1 second. The Gemara understands that pregnant women have a slightly different walk to them, and so as a result, why can't we use that kind of test? So it's sort of a less invasive test. So Amarami Bar Chama, Isha Mechaba Atzma. Now, a woman is always going to want her second husband to be the father, and so she will do whatever she can physically to avoid setting off the alarm bells of the fact that it was from the first husband. And so as a result, we cannot rely on that checking, and therefore we are back down to a situation where we have to wait 3 months. We've tried every other number that's less than 3, and so in the end, we need to wait 3 months. So now that we've confirmed that we have to wait 3 months, so then the question is, um, uh, uh, what about a pregnant woman? Why not let her get married? So, and because we said that even a pregnant woman needs to wait. So, Heka de Kimlan demu beres hi tinase. So, why not say that when we've confirmed that she's pregnant, that she can get married? So, Alama Tanya, why did we learn a brisa? Lo yisa adam uberes chavero uminekes chavero. You're not allowed to marry a pregnant woman or a nursing woman. V'im nasa yotzi below yachzer olamis. And we said that if you did marry, you have to divorce her and you can't take her back ever. So we're going to come through 3 different explanations. The first 2 will be rejected, and then we'll have the explanation. Now we saw this brisa earlier, and we sort of just told everyone what the bottom line was in this Gemara, but now we are actually seeing it inside. So, Gzeira. So the first explanation is that really there's a Gzeira Shema Te'asa Ubara Sandal, that maybe she will conceive again, and as a result, the first child that was already there inside her, again, this is a Talmudic biology, will end up becoming a nafel, a miscarriage, and so as a result, that is why we don't want to allow her to get married. We're worried that by engaging in marital relations with the new husband, so then the first child will end up being aborted. Well, why do we let any woman remain with her husband when she's pregnant? They shouldn't be able to engage in any kind of relationship in that situation because of that concern. Well, Ilaman de Amar B'moch. Well, now again, according to those who say that there are 2 different reasons, right? Maybe you're allowed to engage in some sort of contraceptive where you put something, where they put some cloth inside the woman. So so then the married couple will engage in their relations with that level of pregnancy protection. The Ilaman da Amar Min Hashemayim Yirachemu, and according to the one that says that Hashem will have mercy and thereby protect them. So Min Hashemayim Yirachemu. So then Hashem will protect the person. So that's why, with respect to the married person, we're not going to prohibit them to engage in relations. Well, then Hachinami. Well, what about the situation with the second husband? We've got explanations both ways. We can use that same mechanism for the second husband to protect the first that child that's already in his new wife. So as a result, we cannot accept that first response. Ela mishum dechasa. No, we're worried about the pressure that is going to be put on the pregnant woman, and that will cause a miscarriage. Well, well, one second. What about the husband? The husband in an ordinary situation of a husband and wife when she's pregnant. Why don't we have this prohibition? So, nah, he's going to be concerned about the child, and he's going to make sure not to put the kind of pressure that will actually cause a problem. Well, it's not like the second husband is going to be a mean guy and want to do something that will harm the child. He's not going to do something actively to harm the child. So now we need to come up with a third answer. Ella stam mu'beres l'menika kaima. No, the point is that most pregnant women are going to have children and therefore going to become a nursing mother. So Dilma I Abra umi aker chalava v'katlale. So maybe now and we turn to Mbet, maybe she'll become pregnant while she's nursing, and as a result, her milk production will stop or will become will become not good, and she'll end up killing the first child. Well, well, 1 second. If that were a concern, her first husband shouldn't be able to be sleeping with his wife when she's pregnant either. When she's nursing either. So today, that's not really going to be a concern, because when it's the guy's own child, mimasma mimasmusa le beveitzim v'chalab. He's going to give her eggs and milk. He's going to give the child eggs and milk, and so as a result, that those eggs and milk, at least that was again the proper method of formula in those days. They would give the baby eggs and milk, and that way the child would still survive. Well, Tidainami. Well, why not let the second husband do that same thing? Let him give the child the eggs and the milk. So lo yav laval. No, we're worried that the husband, the second husband, will not want to do that for his wife. That although he's willing to sort of avoid directly killing the child, he's not going to want to try, and he's not going to want to spend his own money to support him. So 1 second, let her go to the funds of the inheritors of her first husband, and let them bear the responsibility, because this child should be part of that estate, and so as a result should actually get some claim to the funds. So Amar Abaye, Isha Busha Lavo Vevestim. A woman doesn't want to come to court. She'll be embarrassed to come to court. V'horeges espana, and she'll end up causing her child to die. So there are obviously a number of issues with this Gemara, but I think the idea is that it's hard to imagine somebody will not want to provide for a living being. But I think the idea is that first of all, people are very selfish, and so he especially when she can potentially get funds from another source, he'll want to try and have her get those funds from another source. And the point is that even if she is somewhat reluctant, so that reluctance will create risk for the child, and that risk is something that the rabbis feel uncomfortable with, and therefore they say that not only are you not allowed to marry a pregnant or nursing woman, but if you do, we're going to require you to divorce her and not remarry her, because that is an attitude that is destructive, and we do not want to countenance that. Okay, so let's, do you have a question, Kanan?
Weiter, keep going.
Okay, great. All right, so now we're at the two dots at the top of Membed Bet. So achas besulos v'achas be'ulos. So we said in our Mishnah that this law of having to wait 3 months applies whether the widow is, or divorcee is a virgin or a non-virgin. So and we then went on and said that it also applies whether the women engaged in nisuin or erisin. Well, the virgin, why would a woman still be a virgin? Well, the most likely explanation is because she was only did erisin, and they didn't actually fully marry, because a husband is prohibited to engage in sexual relations only after erisin with his wife. Indeed, the wife is prohibited to every person when erisin has happened. So hey nihu besulos, hey nihus arusa. So which ones? Who are the besulos? Those are those who had done erisin. So hai nihu beulos, vehai nihu nesuos. And who are the ones that are beulos, the ones who have had relations? Those are those who are married with nesuin. They're the exact same. Why is the Mishnah telling us the same categories? It's just repetitive. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda Hachikamar. Achas besulos, achas besulos, achas beulos, shenis armalu onishinis garshu, bein min ha'erisin bein min nisuin. No, the point is that we're not saying that these are distinct additional categories. It is just explaining what it means that when it says virgins and non-virgins. Not virgins are those who are still from Erisin, and those who are non-virgins are the ones who have done nisuin. So as a result, that it's not really a repetitive, but rather just further clarification. So all right. So
I
now,
thought yesterday Ellie was saying that sometimes when they were doing just erosin, like things would happen, so to speak. That it's not necessarily 100% that she's a.
well, indeed, they in Yehuda, in the I think it was in Yehuda that they mentioned that the women were more
Right,
likely
exactly.
to be close to the men, and so as a result, it was more possible. But in general, we do say that. So you're absolutely right that there are certain situations where we don't say that, and therefore we want to make sure that they separate. But where the family is sufficiently close, so then we do express that concern. You're absolutely right. All right, but and you're absolutely right also to highlight that in the end, what is the truth is what matters. Meaning, the bottom line is that it doesn't make a difference. Everybody, we effectively say low plug. We're going to have everybody wait because we don't want to create a separate rule, and so then that could lead to confusion. And now all of a sudden, people are no longer waiting 3 months. So that is the basics. So Rabbi Elazar lo. Al Lebei Midrasha. So we're going to now have a story, and that is going to lead to us detailing certain halachas, certain halachic principles, and then that will lead to a quick aside. So let's take a look. Rabbi Elazar lo al Lebei Midrasha. So one day, Rabbi Elazar didn't come to the Beit Midrash. Ashkechel Rabbi Yasi, and he found Rabbi Yasi. Amar lei, my Amar Rabbanim b'Beit Midrasha. What did they say in the Beit Midrash today? So Amar lei, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan said. Halacha Rabbi Yossi. That the halacha in our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yossi. What did Rabbi Yossi say in our Mishnah? He said that one does not need to wait 3 months to perform Erisin. That's the initial stage of marriage, except for a widow who needs to wait because she is in mourning. So we're going to explain tomorrow what that widow who needs to wait because she is in mourning refers to and what that means. But at the moment, the key point is that we don't need to wait to perform Erisin. And indeed, the general understanding is that Rabbi Yossi also agrees with Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah. And Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah said that if you had only done Erisin, well, then you could go into Nisuin because you presumably did not engage in relations. And again, the exception was those who did Erisin in Yehuda because the people in that area were more familiar with each other. And so as a result, we were more concerned that they would have engaged in marital relations even during the course of Erisin. But the point is that the bottom line is that if we know that there's no chance of her being pregnant, well, then we'll allow Nisuin right away. And on the other side, we'll allow Erisin right away because, again, the Erisin is not going to result in marital relations. And so therefore, we can allow the Erisin to happen, and then we'll wait 3 months and we'll see whether or not the person is pregnant. And if they're pregnant, so then they'll have to wait a little longer. And if they're not, then everything is fine and they can go ahead and get married and they can do Nisuin and then they can engage in sexual relations. So that's the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. That's what Rabbi Yochanan said. Well, Miklal, the Yichida Polygale. Well, that implies that our Tanakama in our Mishnah, because our Mishnah began without an attribution, it just said that the Yevamot lo tachlotz v'lo tityabim ad sheyesh Allah shlosha chadashim until 3 months have passed, and similarly for other women. So it must be that opinion is actually a specific single individual. Because if Rabbi Yossi is arguing with a single individual, so then we'll say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. But if the Rabbi Yossi is arguing with a multiple of individuals, well, then we would say that the halacha is like the multiple of individuals. So in fact, yes, you're absolutely right that the Tanakama in our Mishnah is in fact a single individual, the Hatanya, and we got a brisa that shows it. Haresha Haisa Redufa Leilech Lebeis Aviha. A woman should go to her father's house. Osha Hayala Kas Beveis Bala. Meaning if she goes to her father's house on a regular basis, and now the husband dies while she is away. Osha Hayala Kas Beveis Bala, or her husband was angry, where she was angry with her husband, and so as a result, they are separated, and so as a result, we know that she's not pregnant. Or the husband's in jail. Or the husband's old or sick. So or she's sick. Or she miscarried after her husband died. Or she was unable to have children. O Zakina, or she's old. O Kitana, or she's a minor. O Islandess, or she is a woman who never developed her female productive organs. O She'ena Ru'uya Leleid, or otherwise unable to have a baby. She still has to wait 3 months. Divrei Rebbe Meir. So again, the bottom line is what are the opening position in our Mishnah was that you have to wait 3 months, even if you even if we were to know that you're not pregnant. For example, even if the woman is a virgin. And so similarly, along those lines, we see Rebbe Meir says the same thing. Rabbi Yehuda mater liyares linase miyad. However, Rabbi Yehuda says no. If we're sure that there's no pregnancy, we're going to allow Erusin or Nisuin right away, because on all these cases, the woman is definitely not pregnant. So all this shows that in fact, we can in fact hold like Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Chazer bo Rabbi Yochanan. But and then Rabbi Chia bar Abba says, with respect to this story, that in fact Rabbi Yochanan ended up retracting his ruling. Why? Because we have enough. Because Rav Yosef will say, all right, here we go. Amar Rav Yosef, if he did in fact retract it, it was because of this teaching, the karma in the vineyard, because it was in a place called Kerem B'Yavna, that he retracted it. To Tanya, because we have a brisa that says the following: Rabbi Yishmael ben Nosho, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, Rabbi Yishmael the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka said, Shamati mipi chachamim b'Kerem B'Yavna. I heard from chachamim, from multiple people, from multiple rabbis in Kerem B'Yavna. Kulan srichos lahamtin l'shlosha chadashim. Everybody's got to wait 3 months. So we see that in fact the Tanakama in our Mishnah is not just Rabbi Meir, but in fact there were other rabbis who were teaching the same principle. So Amrle Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zerika, Rabbi Yirmiyah said to Rabbi Zika, Ki ayalos l'kamed Rabbi Abahu Ramila mi Amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rabbi Yossi. Did in fact Rabbi Yochanan say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi? Bahama Rabbi Yochanan halacha kistam Mishnah. When second, Rabbi Yochanan said that the halacha is like a stam Mishnah. Utnan kol hanashim lo yinasu v'lo yisarsu ad sheyehu lahem shlosha chadashim achas besulos v'achas beulos. We have our Mishnah, right? Says the Tanakama is an unattributed opinion, and so the halacha should be like an unattributed opinion. So the response, Rabbi Bahu says back to Rabbi Zerika, no, second, you are making a mistake in your knowledge of the halachic rules. So Amar Lei Duramalach Halo Chash Lekimche, right? You didn't, the one who asked this contradiction, when Rabbi Yirmiyah asked this contradiction, raised this contradiction, he was not lo chash l'kemkemke. He didn't grind his wheat into flour well. So stam ba'achar kach machlokas he, because our Mishnah is not a simple stam Mishnah. Our Mishnah is a stam, meaning it's anonymous at the beginning, v'achar kach machlokas, but then it has a machlokas in it. Ve'ein halacha kistam, and then we say that in that situation the halacha is not necessarily going to be like the anonymous ruling. Da'amar Rav Papa, the Yisema Rabbi Yochanan, machlokas v'achar kach stam, halacha kistam. That when you have a machlokas and then the stam, well, then the halacha is going to be like the stam. But stam v'achar kach machlokas ain't halacha kistam. But when you have the stam and then the machlokas, as we had in our Mishnah, where we had the anonymous statement and then two opposing views, then we don't have to say that the halacha is like the anonymous ruling. And so as a result, the hava amina that Rabbi Yochanan had is totally a valid hava amina. And now, having mentioned this ruling in connection with Rabbi Abahu, we're now going to have a teaching of this ruling and the conversation that resulted, even though it does not have anything to do with the Yevamos. And after we finish that, we'll be back ready for tomorrow, and we'll have to stay tuned for the further discussion of the 3-month waiting period. So let's take a quick look.
So this is a before that. This was just like principles of
halakha,
literary interpretation of Mishnaic.
Correct. Why was it when Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi established the Mishnah? Why did he set up certain Mishnayos as anonymous, whereas other Mishnayos he set up with names? And so the fact that he would choose to do it in a certain way tells us something. And so that's that's the detail that we're trying to get at right now. And in fact, we're going to now go over 4 different rules. You can see them on the screen. 4 different rules that Rabbi Abahu is going to be teaching. So, Mr. Mikva Azo Rabbi Abahu Akasve the Rabbi Nachum Shmaya. That Rabbi Abahu was leaning on the shoulders of his assistant Rabbi Nachum. And so, as they walked, Rav Nachum was trying to get as much Torah teaching as he could. So, he asked Rabbi Abahu, "Machlokas v'akar kach stam mai." What's the story if Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, when he detailed the Mishnah, he said a machlokas and then he gave the stam ruling? So Amar Lei, Rabbi Abahu said to him, "Halacha kistam." That the point of doing so was to teach us that the stam teaching is in fact the halacha. Stam v'akar kach machlokas mai. So Amar Lei ain't halacha kistam. So when you have it in the reverse order, if the stam as we had in our Mishnah, well then the halacha is not, and it's really not necessarily, because of course we did in the end say that the halacha is like our stam, but it doesn't necessarily have to follow the stam position. So stama de masnisin umachlokas bevreisamai. What happens if you have a stam Mishnah, but then you have a machlokas in a brisa? How do I judge that kind of comparison? So Amar Lei halacha kistam. No, that's a situation where the fact that it wasn't included in the Mishnayos, the machlokas, so then that shows that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi felt that the halacha was like the stam, the anonymous ruling. Machlokas b'masnisin ustama b'braisamai. What if you have the reverse? If you've got a machlokas in a Mishnah, but you have a clear ruling in a brisa, so without any attribution. So Amar Lei, so v'chi Rebbe lo shna'a Rabbi Chia minayin lo. And if Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi didn't teach that Mishnah as an anonymous Mishnah, didn't teach that brisa as an anonymous Mishnah, so Rabbi Chia minayin lo, am I going to do it? How am I going to be able to do that? I can't do that. So as obviously the point being that in fact an anonymous brisa does not in fact tell us what the halacha is. So Amar Lei. So now we're going to have a situation where Reb Nachum is going to say, "Hey, you said that an anonymous ruling is one where we actually yes, an anonymous ruling without any dispute is one where we follow the halacha is like that anonymous ruling. But we have a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Kalim that says that we don't actually follow. So v'hatanan masrik shel pishtan. Now this is going to go into tuma and tahara, and so in order for something to be makabel tuma, especially if it's made out of wood, so then it needs to be some sort of vessel. And so if you have a masrik shel pishtan, you have a comb for flax, shenitlu shinav v'nishtayru bo shtayim. They've got bunches of teeth removed. I know how I have a bunch of combs that don't have all their teeth. So that's what we're talking about here. Timeos. It's still, as long as they've got two together, so then that is going to be still a kli that is susceptible to becoming tameh. But if it's only have one tooth in the whole thing, well then tahor, then it's going to be fine. It's not usable as a utensil, and so as a result, it is not capable of becoming tameh. V'chulan shenitlu, and with respect to the teeth that were taken off, achas b'vnei atzman tameos. So then each one individually is going to be tameh because it could be used as a utensil. Shel tzemer. Now, if it's a comb for wool, shenitlu shinav achas mimbein tayim. If you've got every other tooth removed, tahor. Then it's tahor because you don't have a single tooth. You don't have two teeth together. Nishtayru bo shalosh b'makom echad. But if you have three in one place, tameh, then it's capable of becoming tameh. It's considered a kli because it is useful, and so therefore we're going to say it's tameh. But if when you take a look at those three, one of the outermost teeth, and we'll just go with the easiest explanation, and that means the outermost teeth are the teeth at the edges of the comb, at the two edges of the comb, well then tahor, then it's tahor, because obviously the ones that are more useful are the prongs of the comb that are in the middle, because that's where you have the most control. If you remove two teeth and you make them into tweezers, tmeos, well then that's clearly tameh. Achas v'hiskina l'ner o l'mituach, and or one time, and you prepare it to help clean out a lamp or a lemituach, or to stretch something out. So then tmeya, then it is again susceptible to tuma because it's something that's useful. So the kaimalan, and yet we say the ein halacha ka'osa mishnah, that the halacha is not like that mishnah. So we're going to now come up with three different efforts to explain why we say that this mishnah is not, the halacha is not like this mishnah. The first two efforts are to try and find.
Mishnah, right?
This was a stam mishnah, correct. The first two efforts are based on the fact that we're going to say that there's an inconsistency. The third is going to go directly to the point you just mentioned, Hanan, and say, this is not a stam mishnah. In fact, there's a machlokas in this mishnah, not a machlokas, but there's an attribution in this mishnah that we just didn't say. So we're going to reject the first two, and we're going to then say the third, and that will leave us ready to get back to 3 months of waiting, God willing, tomorrow. So Amrleh, so Rabbi Abahu said back to Rav Nachman, Bar Mina Dahi. Now you can't talk about that mishnah. The Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish, the Amru Tarvayu, Zo ain't a mishnah. The Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish both said that this is not really a mishnah. So now again, why isn't it in the Mishnah? So again, we're now going to give three reasons. So my time, why isn't this a good Mishnah? So effort number one, Amar Rav Huna bar Manoach Mishmei de Rav Idi Barei de Rav Aika Mishum de Kasha Reisha of the Sefer, because there's a internal contradiction between the rules associated with the first rules and the latter rules. The Katani Shel Tzemer Shenitlu Shinav Achas Mibing Tayim. Tahor, when you have one tooth removed, every other tooth removed, we said that that's tahor. That implies that if there are two teeth in one location, well then tameh, then it's tameh. But then in the latter part of the Mishnah, it said nishtayru bo shalosh, you need three teeth. So then it's tame. Shalosh in, shtayim lo. That implies that you need 3 teeth and not 2 teeth. So isn't that an internal inconsistency? And I don't understand why they don't just say, well, that's one's about flax and one's about wool. But oh no, it's even within the wool, maybe, I guess. Yeah. The problem is even within the wool, that's a problem. So right, so it's the issue is that I have this wrong on my thing. It's the fourth point, and the fourth point and the fifth point are the ones that are inconsistent, right? The fourth point suggests that you need to have at least 2 together, and the fifth point says that no, you need 3 together. So umay koshya dilma habagvaisa v'habavraisa. Maybe one is on the inner part and one is on the outer part. So 2 explanations of what the inner and the outer are according to Rashi. One is that the inner refers to the middle of the comb, and so there you only need 2, while at the edges you need 3. And then the other possibility is that we're talking about a comb that has, it's really almost becomes like a brush, but we're talking about fixed fixed tongs, fixed prongs, and so as a result, that's the difference between that and a brush. But in any event, so the idea is that we have 2 rows, and it could be that the inner row, the row that is closest to the handle, is the one that that requires 2 teeth, and the outer row, the back row, that would require 3 teeth to remain functional. And so that the bottom line is, though, is that we reject the first answer because we've come up with a way to make clear that this is not actually an internal inconsistency. So now inconsistency number 2, Elamehacha diktani v'kulan shenitlu achas b'fnei atzman timeos. 1 second. In the first part of our Mishnah, we said any single tooth that is come out on its own is going to be subject to becoming tameh, because even though you didn't actually do anything to prepare it. But in the Seifa, we specifically said you needed to prepare the usage of that item for usage to clean a lamp or to stretch out something. So then it was tameya. Hiskina in, lo hiskina lo. That implies that you don't need that if you didn't prepare it, unlike the Resha of the Mishnah, it would not work. So Amar Abaye umay kushya. Again, what kind of question is that? Dilma habakatayu. One is when it's got a handle, namely if it has any bit of a handle with it, so it came off a little bit with a little bit of extra material. So then, as a result, it's going to be considered a utensil, even if it's just one tooth. But in the second part of the Mishnah, when it says that you need to engage in some kind of preparation, it's talking about where it didn't come off with any handle whatsoever. So as a result, and Rav Papa adds another reason that it might not work. My question, what kind of question is this? The Dilma Habagatinasa, Haba, that one is talking about narrow teeth, where you can't grab onto it without a handle. Haba alimasa on the beginning of the Mishnah is talking about wide teeth, so a wide tooth that can be grabbed easily. So then you don't need to do any preparation, and then it will already become tameh, but because it's still usable. But when it comes to a narrow tooth, if you don't actually prepare it to use it as a kli, so then it will not be subject to becoming tameh. So Ella, so finally we come to our third answer. Ella mishum the misaime ba the davkani, because in fact we are going. The Mishnah is supposed to end with. And that those who know well are supposed to end the Mishnah the following: Zo divrei Rabbi Shimon. This is the words of Rabbi Shimon, and so as a result, this is no longer an anonymous Mishnah, but rather a Mishnah that has an attribution. And so as a result, the laws, the 4 rules that we said, do not in fact apply. And so it's not an anonymous Mishnah, and we are now ready to get back to the concept of waiting 3 months. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I'll mention now again at the end, my hope is that because I am not available next Tuesday, I'm going to try and get a little bit of extra done each day so that we can be ahead by about a dot, God willing, next Tuesday.
So this is like really, so the Stam Mishnah, you can't take it on face value. if it's a Stam Mishnah.
You mean because maybe in fact it's not really a Stam Mishnah?
Well, what a Stam Mishnah means, it's an unattributed, right?
Correct.
But here it is unattributed, but he's saying it's not a Stam Mishnah because we're going to find from somebody else that, we're going to use external evidence to say that it's really, the text is corrupt or something, and then,
Correct. Right, but I think the point is that when you don't have any citation to any other external source for saying that there's somebody else, an author to that Mishnah, so then we would say that is in fact a Stam Mishnah. I think the vast majority of Stam Mishnahs, I mean, the fact that we asked this question and we answered it this way certainly suggests that the vast majority of Stam Mishnahs don't have this problem.
Okay.
Because if there were other Mishnayos that had this problem, then presumably.
This is an exception that proves the rule?
Yes, I think that's exactly the point that is trying to be made here.
Okay, all right.
Because otherwise they would have asked, what about these other cases that the halakha is not like? So from the fact that they didn't ask about other Stam Mishnahs that the halakha is not like, that certainly suggests that, again, a Stam Mishnah. And again, it's important to remember that the Stam Mishnah where any machlokas is before the Stam statement. If the Stam Mishnah is followed by a machlokas in that Mishnah, like the one our Mishnah in particular, so then you wouldn't necessarily be able to learn anything from the fact that it's a Stam Mishnah.
Because it's not really a Stam Mishnah, or because
Rebbe Yehuda,
the presumption is undermined or something, or
exactly the presumption. I would say the presumption is undermined by the fact that Rebbe Yehuda chose to give us a machlokas afterwards. So there was something that is causing Rebbe Yehuda Nasi to hesitate in saying that in fact the halacha is like it.
Okay, it's interesting.
Yeah. This is a very important Gemara for understanding these principles. So certainly worth keeping in mind. Have a wonderful day.
The division of what constitutes a Mishnah is not always clear, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Where one Mishnah begins and where one Mishnah ends.
That is true. I will note that this principle of Stam va'achar kach machlokas, or machlokas va'achar kach Stam, can often be applied within an entire Masechet, and sometimes even across Masechtot within the same Seder, but we don't apply it, between, Taros and Nezikin or something like that. So, we can't. This concept of Stam v'achar kach machlokas v'achar kach Stam doesn't only have to apply only within a single individual Mishnah, but it can also sometimes apply even across Mishnayos, but within the Mishnayos of a Masechet, or where a Masechet used to exist. So, for example, you will have this principle across all of Nezikin, all of the Babas, because all of the Babas used to be a Masechet called Nezikin. So that's the idea that's intended to be covered here. So it's a little bit, even though it says it with a Mishnah, it's referring to it more broadly of the Mishnayos within a Masechet potentially.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Have a great day. See you tomorrow at 7:30.
God willing, yeah. Okay.